So, have you ever had the opportunity to go into a dirt cheap? What about a treasure hunt? What about a dirt cheap building supplies? No? Well, I can understand. But if you're from the South, you're probably at least familiar with these buildings that you've maybe been like, what's that about? I should go in there sometime. Well, I did, and it was quite the experience. Operating as a brick and mortar retail store only, no online presence whatsoever, you never knew what you were going to find. It was that treasure hunt mentality. So you may be saying, what's the deal? Well, the deal is this. Unfortunately, dirt cheap, treasure hunt, all of the other subsidiary names, but mostly they're known as dirt cheap. They are filing for bankruptcy and all stores are going to close. I know, I hate it too. I especially hate it for the 2,500 plus employees that are being impacted by this decision. Now, what's been put out by the company is there's no timetable on when the stores will actually close. But what I have been able to ascertain after going down a major rabbit hole about this company is that they will all be closed by the end of this year. Now, before we go further, we have to understand, who is Dirt Cheap? So Dirt Cheap says about themselves that they're an extreme value retailer giving major brand customer returns and excess inventory a second chance at life. This, especially towards the end of the company's run, was a big part of who they were. They said that they were meeting the needs of a diverse customer clientele. They were operating stores often in rural communities. And this is product a lot of times from major retailers, Target, Big Lots, Kohl's, even in some circumstances, all sorts of different private enterprise as well. But ultimately, they would keep these things from the landfill. Now, Dirt Cheap's parent company is CCM.
Do you really know where your returns are going? And with the focus your company has on sustainability, can you afford not to know what's going on?
There's a better way. We're channel control merchants. We close the loop by offering clear line of sight through the re-commerce cycle, all the way down to the store level.
We don't resell to the highest bidder, and we won't sell against you online.
When you're ready, we analyze your returns with full transparency all the way to distribution.
We take it from here in my store, one of 100 across North America.
Your returns are given a second chance to make an impact in someone's life. Our mission is to improve lives and communities in a sustainable way.
So instead of wondering where your returns are going, close the loop with channel control merchants.
We're ready. Let's do good together.
So Channel Control Merchants is actually the company behind Dirt Cheap. They say that they started in 1954. They also say in other circumstances that they've been around for about 30 years. I'll explain kind of the asterisk around that. In 2021 alone, CCM said that they kept 90 million individual items out of a landfill, representing $3 billion in retail costs. So where does that 1954 come into play? Well, in 1954, a family-owned company, Hudson Salvage, would start in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. And that is where CCM is headquartered to this very day. Well, Hudson Salvage also has 3 stores, which are separate from this Dirt Cheap filing. So Hudson Salvage is still alive and well with 3 locations across Mississippi. Confused yet? Just hold on. Now, staying with the Hudson name, I want to introduce you to Mickey Hudson, who was one of the founders of Hudson Salvage. Now, he unfortunately passed away in 2014 due to some tornadic activity that came through Mississippi late 2014. He actually passed away just a couple days before Christmas. Really sad story for his family because great guy, gave a bunch of money to a lot of different causes, very active in his community, just loved life and loved people. But in 2015, so the very next year, his son would reopen the Hudson Salvage brand, and that's what you see in those 3 stores that I told you about previously. In fact, well into the 90s, Dirt Cheap and Treasure Hunt were actually called Hudson's Dirt Cheap and Hudson's Treasure Hunt because they had been, the Hudson name had been the originators of these stores. But at some point in the 90s, CCM, that we mentioned before, took a majority stake in the company, dropped the Hudson name, and it became what it is today. Again, gets confusing. Stay with me a little bit longer. Will it pay off? Probably not. 2015 would also be an important year for the Dirt Cheap / CCM holdings because KKR, a private investment firm, would take a majority stake and would in fact essentially purchase CCM Dirt Cheap at all. Now, if you're familiar with KKR, if it seems familiar to you, not only do they have an investment stake in a lot of different companies, but they're most famous for their hostile takeover of R.J. Reynolds' Nabisco. This led to a documentary on HBO. It was, at the time, the most egregious case of corporate greed ever. You know, a company is failing, and yet their CEO walks away from this takeover deal with $60 million. Now, who suffers? You guessed it, the employees were the ones who suffer. Many of the employees said it took 5 to 6 months to secure new jobs and at half the rate of pay they had been making at RJR Nabisco. So in 2015, I don't see KKR as going into this purchase thinking that this is a business that is going to fail. They liked the potential of moving into Canada, what that could look like logistics-wise, because ultimately CCM was a logistics-based company. They met with their clients, again, major retailers, said, we can have a better way to sell your product. We're going to sell it in our stores. We're not going to compete with you online. That's going to play a role in a little bit before the downfall. But we're not going to compete with you. We're going to keep brand integrity, and we're going to help these customers in these rural towns get products cheaply. It's a win-win for everybody. And in rare circumstances, clothing, shoes, lots of different goods actually even went to Africa. Yes, that was a part of the Dirt Cheap business, sending products that they couldn't move in their stores to underserved, to destitute in some situations, people in Africa. So between 2015 and 2022, lots of restructuring went on, a complete rethink of the corporate strategy within CCM. What would it look like? They would scale back retail operations from over 100 stores to somewhere in the 65 to 70 range. Lots of money was put in by KKR in that time period. 2 big influxes of cash in particular. How did it go? Well, it didn't go too well. KKR was sued by, remember that minority stake that was retained by the previous owners? Well, they said that KKR had specifically tried to tank the company. Essentially, in 2019, KKR had overinflated the value of inventory that the company had, the sole purpose of which was to drive the percentage that the minority stakeholders still owned to basically nothing, pennies on the dollar. And so they sued KKR over it. But in 2022, things still looked rosy. KKR was still saying that this company is on the rise. We like what they're doing logistically. We like what they're doing as a philosophy behind a company. They brought in a new CEO who had formerly been with Ross Stores. They brought in a new HR team. They planned to go places. Well, in 2023, they were sued again. But by this time, KKR had actually jumped ship and sold the company to Hilco Global. Hilco had been an investor already, and Barron's Investment Group. So did they do better than KKR? Well, no, they didn't. In 2024, they would face strained relationships with retailers who had been the bread and butter of the operation for so many years. In fact, they would face a lawsuit from Seth Marks, the SVP of Big Lots, over agreed upon prices not being honored. By the time of the bankruptcy filing on October the 11th, CCM and HDC Holdings were burning through $1 million a day, trying to keep the company afloat. So what are the key things that have led to the downfall of Dirt Cheap? Well, one of them is one of their biggest partners, that of Target. Target began to raise the price of palleted return merchandise and began to send better merchandise to Dirt Cheap's competitor. And when you're dealing with your biggest retail partner, there's not a whole lot you can do other than accept what Target sends you. Now, who was that competitor? B-Stock Solutions, founded by Howard Rosenberg, an eBay executive. Whereas Dirt Cheap would work in brick and mortar, B-Stock Solutions would only operate online, cutting out significant overhead. And something different as well, these brands that Dirt Cheap and CCM said they would hold the integrity of the brands. They would not compete with the brands. Well, B-Stock gives them a whole new avenue to play in. They are the seller, the companies themselves. They not only want you to know it's their product, they're the ones selling it to you. So if you have a Dirt Cheap near you and you haven't been in one, you've always meant to, but you just always drive by, take a chance. See what you can find. There are going to be some deals unlike any the stores have seen. I can promise you that. One thing that was neat about Dirt Cheap is through their app, you would scan an item in their store, and depending on how long it had been there, it could be all the way up to 90% off. I got some items that were, I thought, cheap at $20, only to get it up to the register, and it was $3 or $2 or $1. And it was neat. I haven't experienced that type of a deal, not knowing really to either you scan it or sometimes you get up to the register before you find out. It was very unique, very fun. That same app now, well, it seems to be going in a different direction. In fact, when I logged into it on my phone, there were offers for 21 years and up. I know what you're thinking. I was thinking it too. It's not that, but it is something different. So if you miss Dirt Cheap and you still want to get your drink on, you can do that. So as I said, maybe they weren't as quick to adopt online for their product offering. You can order your booze on the go. So you can get your drink of the month. And the reason I had to verify my age when I got on the app earlier, their extensive selection of cigarette products. So it looks like the future for the Dirt Cheap app anyway is going to be very, very different. So here we are, the end of the video, an extensive video that no one was asking for, but that I was proud to deliver on the end of Dirt Cheap and its 18 subsidiaries that are mentioned in the bankruptcy filing. That's true. If anybody got to this point, other than myself, I thank you so much. Have a great day.